what advice would you offer someone who wants to sustain that high intensity activity safely into their 50s, 60s, and beyond?
So I do want to go back to the question, Corbin, you had asked, and Jeff, you'd asked as well about, some of the things that I do that are a bit different. Barefoot, cold exposure. Obviously, Wim Hof and others have made a big deal about cold exposure. I do a little bit of that. Intermittent fasting. There's all of this is about living a more natural life and not shielding ourselves from nature, but being part of it. So intermittent fasting, I think, is super powerful. And I'm not looking for scientists to prove that rats live longer if you give them less cheese or whatever. Intermittent fasting gives you the self-confidence to walk past bad options. And I did a 48-hour fast. Like, wow, you went 2 days without food, big deal. But whatever, I was on a business trip. I didn't want to eat the bad food in the airport. I didn't want to eat the terrible box lunches at the business conference. And I didn't want on the way back eat at the airport again. So I have the confidence to walk past bad options. Nutrition is so important. Hippocrates, he said, eat carefully. That's one of the principles of health. But, again, back to our ancestors. In living in nature, they had enough food to grow and reproduce. Obviously, we wouldn't be here, but they didn't have food every day. And you read historical accounts and you see, Native Americans or other folks in hunter-gatherer societies would go days without food and they were totally used to it. And so many of the chronic ailments seem to be associated today with metabolic weakness. So a dependence on constant sugary snacking, um, and you lose the ability to burn fat and sustain yourself without, a jelly donut or whatever it is you're eating. Most of our food supply is equivalent to jelly donuts. That's important. Cold exposure. I keep my thermostat pretty low, and that's why I'm wearing a jacket right now, because the cold stimulates you, and it makes your body, react and get engaged. And the barefoot, I think, Jeff, you were asking about the barefoot hiking. I was going from ultra marathons because I love the intensity of pushing 50 miles, 100 miles beyond. I loved the intensity. It taught me so much about myself. It was so self-empowering. As I became injured at that point in my life, I switched to barefoot in part because barefoot gives you a lot of intensity. The rocks are uncomfortable. The moss is very pleasurable. So you get that wide range of experience, but you're moving at a very slow and careful pace. And you're taking all the shock out because you can't pound and land heavily on your bare feet. So it was and I think, by the way, barefoot hiking would be a great modality for lots of people. No, you don't have to run the ultra marathon, but get out and rediscover balance and agility and connection and mindfulness. So I'd recommend that to almost everybody. And in fact, I do lead intro barefooting workshops, and the young people, they're like fish in water. And even some of the old timers, they're moving slowly, but they get it done, and everybody has a great time.